Welcome to Black History Talks, the Jazz Cypher Project, a conversation about the Black American cultural heritage of jazz. We hope this project will serve to preserve this important music form and nurture a new vanguard generation of jazz musicians, enthusiasts, and supporters to help carry this cultural legacy forward.
Welcome everyone to the second recording of the Black History Talks Jazz Cypher Project. I am Antoinette Jones and your co-host is Lafayette Harris, and we are exploring today in this second session the two genres of jazz and hip-hop, and we have a couple of guests here, Nigel and Marshall, and we are going to invite them to share their experience, their understanding, their knowledge of these two important genres, and exploring understanding of how the two are connected. So I think the first question is, I guess the first question is jazz and hip-hop connected? And let me share this question with you. So what is the jazz hip-hop connection? Robert Glasper said, "Jazz is the mother and father of hip-hop," and I'd just like to share a quote that he put forward regarding this topic.
Jazz is the mother or father of hip-hop music. They're both musics that were born out of oppression. They're both kind of like protest music, you know, going against the grain. Naturally, if you're a hip-hop producer that wants a lot of melodic stuff happening, you're probably going to go to jazz first.
So I'd ask, what are your thoughts on this? Lafayette, why don't you start the conversation?
Okay, well, from what Robert is saying, that you can get a lot of great ideas by looking at jazz for if you're someone who's putting together hip-hop music production. And of course, traditionally in hip-hop, it's like, and hip-hop is old enough to be able to call it traditional, you know, and I remember it first hearing it in the early 80s, late 70s. Disco music was, you know, the first things that they were using, and old funk beats, you know, so it was just a natural progression to go back a little further and start digging through the crates of your jazz records, especially those jazz records that had like a lot of funkiness going on with them, like 60s and 70s kind of crossover jazz.
Okay. Do you have any samplings of music that you could share?
Sure, I got a little program ready for you go right now.
Okay.
All right, let me just share my little screen here. And can you all see that? All right. So this is Mr. Donald Byrd, who I had the honor of knowing and playing with once on BET Jazz. And he passed away back in 2013, and I played at his memorial. I was considered to be one of the Blackbirds, new Blackbirds. And here's something he recorded with one of the great hip hop producers and rappers guru. I forget what GURU stands for. Stands for something, but I don't remember what it is. Somebody might know. Okay, so check this track out.
Check it out. If I rhyme this, you will find this situation shall advance. You could take a glance or dance. Elevated lyrics to arouse a crowd. Now tell me who's the man to show you how. Many legacies of brothers who get busy. And I do it fluid till the suckers get dizzy. Saying peace to the Blackbirds, 125th Street. And check the flow that's unique. For lounging, lounging, lounging. Mellow out and just lounging. Lounging, lounging. Mellow out and just lounging.
Okay. All right. So that's Mr. Donald Byrd. I just want to acknowledge a friend of mine just joined us. That's Mr. Dave Gibson from Philadelphia. He's a great jazz drummer.
Welcome, Dave.
He's not a teenager anymore, but he's played with some of these people too. All right, here we go. Now, the very, very famous Mr. Miles Davis. Almost everybody has heard of Miles Davis, and for good reason. Doo-Bop is his last official record, and it was produced by Easy Mo Bee. So here it is. This is the title cut, Doo-Bop.
Let's take a verse from my man called Miles, cause seems to me he's gonna be around for a long while. Cause he's a multi-talented and gifted musician who can play any position. It's no mystery that you're no risk to me, cause I'm the love until your girl to throw a kiss to me and hop in bed and have a fight with a pillow. Turn off the lights and let the J give it to you, and let the trumpet blow as I kick this. This rap is fundamental and Miles sounds so wicked. A little taste of the beatbox sound with the backdrop of doo-hop, and this is why we call it the doo-wop, the doo-wop.
Yeah, that's Mr. Miles Davis, Easy Mo Bee on there producing. And you see from the look of him, Miles is a little bit more image conscious than Donald Byrd was, huh? Maybe. Mm-hmm. All right. And here's one of the young artists of today, Robert Glasper, someone that I met when he first came on the scene in New York a long time ago. Good 20 years ago. All right, and so this is the title cut from his record, Black Radio, which won a Grammy for Best R&B Record back in 2013. And the rap is featuring Mr. Yasin Bey. Okay, here we go.
Oh, Black Radio. Black Radio. You're rocking, yes, you are rocking with the fresh, you are rocking with the depth, you are rocking with the best, you are rocking with the fresh. Now you are rocking with the best, you're rocking with the depth, you are rocking with the best. Yes, you are rocking with the fresh, you are rocking with the depth, you're rocking with the best.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah, that's all I have for now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lafayette. I think Guru, the name stands for Gifted Unlimited Rhymes Universal. Guru. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So I'd like to share another example of this intersectionality between jazz and hip hop. And this one is put forward by Nigel, and he'll share a little bit about this group as well. Let me share my screen. Okay.
vision. I'm so gifted, it appears given. I ain't whipping it, but I'm still driven. Look, I feel blessed for the fact that I've risen out of the murder capital with all of my friends here living. One weekend.
So, Nigel, kids these days, can you share something about this group?
Absolutely. First of all, I truly love this song. I don't know if you guys saw me, caught me like nodding, smiling a little bit. Just the energy in it always gets me. Um, Kids These Days is a group that actually formed in Chicago, where I'm from, where I currently am. It consists of a band, like a relatively full band for our time period. It has a trombone player, and a saxophone player, I forgot to mention, I believe, as well as like live drums and bass, guitars and keys, and the whole 9 yards. It also features Vic Mensa was their primary rapper for most of their tracks that they was rapping on. It was him doing it. And as we know, Vic Mensa has an extensive hip hop career of his own, and now actually is moving into punk rock, which is interesting. And among other collaborators of this group is Chance the Rapper, who's very big. So we all know Chance the Rapper is a rapper, as given by his name. So they formed back in, I believe, either 2009 or 2010. They didn't last very long, unfortunately. They actually broke up in 2013. I didn't find out about them because in 2013 I was just starting high school, so I didn't know anything about them. I found out about them near the end of my high school experience, just stumbling around online, looking at music, and that's one of the great things of the internet is how accessible like old music is. I can pull up anything, and that's a good sort of metaphor for how the band actually reaches back into time and sort of brings elements of jazz with the song B, for example, which is a mashup between, I don't know if people read before, mashup between Common song B and Night in Tunisia. It's it's a really nice jazz standard. I'm a big fan of it by Dizzy Gillespie. And it takes the chord progressions and it takes the, you heard the bass line at the very beginning. That is the bass line. I believe I've played this before, so I'm pretty sure it is, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. But that is the primary bass line for the first section of the Night in Tunisia, where it transitions back and forth between like the E flat and the E flat minor, I believe, in D minor.
Nigel, who is the band that's actually playing? It sounds like is it a live show? Is that
Oh, it is a live band. Yeah, that's the other great thing about it. The entire band is live.
Okay, all right. So there was a band playing and there was a rapper. It does sound like that,
Exactly. It's where the energy, I feel like, it comes from. The interactions you hear between the band, which is a very big jazz component. Interacting live on stage. No two performances are the same, and with this band, they never would be the same either. Mm-hmm. And another thing I love about this song is its form. It really does take the standard sort of jazz form. You play the head, go into your solo sections, and I love how they fit in Vic Mensa's verse between the trumpet solo, and I think the last one was a sax solo was the last one, and they just put him right in where another instrumentalist would have taken a solo, and then wrapped it right back around. So you could tell they did their homework with this, and they're within the they're playing within the realms of both jazz and hip hop, which it's really crazy to hear. And when I first heard this, it definitely blew my mind about just the ways they could interact. And I sort of feel like a lot of hip hop does bring its roots from jazz. I think about sort of a lot of improvisational aspects of hip hop, freestyle rapping, for example, and how that is sort of very similar to soloing in jazz. You have like a certain vocabulary, which is like your jazz licks and going through certain chord progressions and such. And for rappers, it's a similar thing with just the language of the time, the slang, what your people are saying locally, and you just incorporate all that and spit something off the top of your head that blows everyone's minds. Or if you're a jazz player, you blow through a line that just rocks the crowd. And it's this very similar energy that exists between both hip hop and jazz.
Nigel, I haven't heard the song all the way through, but I did not realize that they all were playing together and utilizing one of the main devices of jazz, and that's adhering to the form. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, non-jazz musicians are not aware of that concept.
Right.
Whether you're a pop musician or you're a rapper or you're a classical musician, the idea of this grid, this form that we're going to stick to, and you have to just know where it is something that is pretty much unique to jazz playing.
Very much so. Very much so. And they really incorporated the hip hop element to it well. You know, it was a short little second of, well, it was probably like between 10 and 15 seconds probably. But the way they incorporated it was very impressive to me. But I think it's in this specific context, while I do love the song a lot, I understand how it doesn't really gain sort of wider appeal. Like the rapping was very sparse compared to the other instruments, and in an era where, you know, hip hop and rapping is the really big thing, you're gonna want to hear the rapper more. I do think there are other ways to, you know, incorporate those elements, like Robert Glasper mentioned sampling, and in a way like that, the way they did that was sort of a live sampling, if you will, right? They all knew the song, so they just, you know, played through the song. They brought their own spin to it, obviously, but it's a form of it. You can also sample specific elements from songs, like Chance the Rapper has his song Nana, featuring Action Bronson off Acid Rap. And the bass line for that song is actually the bass line to Red Clay. It's in a slightly different key. It's only one element of it, but I found that interesting as well, because, you know, if you're not necessarily a musician or a jazz musician, you might not know that song, especially nowadays. So to take that and bring it in and make it fresh for our ears, another big element of hip hop. Oh, I think you're muted.
Marshall, do you have anything to add at this point? And then I'll introduce your artist. I'll introduce your artist first then.
Are you there, Marshall?
We can't hear you.
I think is he frozen?
I'm not sure.
He's not muted.
He's not muted. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Is your mic okay?
Does your computer have a mic, and maybe you can just unplug
Maybe you gotta turn the computer volume up. Can't hear you.
Does he have a video to share?
Yeah, well, why don't I share the song, and maybe once the song is ended, Marshall will be able to chime in here. So let me share that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
All right, I'll share your artist.
Coming up from elementary school, hip hop was always in my life. I was into hip hop before I was into jazz. You know, it was like the music I liked to listen to when I was hanging out. So then in college, my friend Terrence Martin, he met an amazing, legendary producer by the name of Battle Cat. And so through Battle Cat, he met Snoop, and then Snoop decided he wanted to have a horn section. So Terrence put me in to play in Snoop's horn section. I kind of came in and just tried to feel it out, see what they were talking about musically. And what I realized is they had a whole world, a whole view of music that I didn't have.
So that was Kamasi Washington, and I'll let Marshall tell us about him and bring us home, and then I'll ask a few more questions to everyone.
So Kamasi Washington has been doing a lot of work in fusing a lot of jazz music with a lot of gospel and R&B and hip hop. And his music is very diverse in that aspect. He uses a lot of vocals too, and he almost uses poetry, a lot of like African American themes in poetry and vocals into his music. He takes a lot of influence from John Coltrane, at least from his jazz, like his style. Like he plays the tenor saxophone, and his tenor playing is very reflective of John Coltrane's style and a lot of the modal artists of the '60s. And for hip hop, he uses a lot of almost hip hop kind of beats and rhythms, and in like mixing and DJing into his music sometimes. And so he kind of represents like a lot of different types of music is fusing into jazz now.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for everyone. Are there any elements of jazz that don't work with hip hop?
Maybe I'll jump in there. The fact that form is so important in jazz. When you're playing most jazz tunes, you have to stick to the form, but there are genres of jazz where there is no form at all, and there are musicians who that's their specialty. So I'm thinking that if you have a feeling that doesn't want to be constrained, then that's a good type of song to use. A lot of times we would call that a vamp. Hey man, just like funk or rock musicians, sometimes we'll just want only a vamp, or maybe we called it a riff. Would you say, Dave? Just like someone to make up a riff and we just play off of that.
Yeah, that's like in musical term, that's called like an ostinato, something that's repeated over and over. But one of the things that I noticed about rap is that they don't use many jazz ballads, like slow ballads to rap over. I noticed most of the stuff is like usually medium tempo or up tempo stuff. I don't know if that is something that the rappers don't gravitate towards.
I like that. And one thing I know about young men, they don't like to do things slow. I remember being a kid going to parties, and it was the girls who were complaining, "Hey, too many fast songs. Play something slow. Play something slow." And the guys would be like, "Oh, all right." And then
like romance.
And then once they put on a slow record and turn the lights down low, and then the guys are, "Oh, okay, this is good." Yeah, So I think that a lot of it has to do with just that dynamic that rap in hip hop is dominated by young men.
That's a very, very good point.
That's just my little. I see some young men on the screen. What y'all think?
No, I actually would agree with that. I feel like at a certain point, there are some slower hip hop songs, but it's hard to come by, right? Because you want the energy, you want to be moving forward, you want to be bouncing. I feel like at a certain point, you slow hip hop down enough, you start wading into some R&B territory, right? That's the feel. and you're getting away from the forward motion of hip hop. You want to lay back. Although you see it more now, like this sort of weird subculture of hip hop production, at least that's come forward, is like slowed down beats. They call them like lo-fi beats, and they're relatively slow tempo. Use some jazzy chords every now and then, but yeah, you do not see a lot of particularly slow hip hop songs.
It could be a thing of the future because hip hop listeners are getting old.
Or getting older.
Well, let's hope that we continue to have this connection between jazz and hip hop, because both genres, as both Glasper and Washington say, express the lived experience of African Americans, and often come across as social protest music. It conveys the emotion of the time, as all music does, really.
Yeah.
But this is important to us these days in this time.
Absolutely.
We just have 2 more minutes. I have one last question that's kind of, I don't know if we can answer it, but how do you think jazz and hip hop have impacted society? Jazz in the past, hip hop today.
I personally think, for one, just pushing Black voices into the mainstream, because it sounds so good, everyone wants to hear, and then we're able to express the things we need to express on a larger platform than ever before. And I think that's had tremendous impact. Like back, 2016, I want to say, when Kendrick Lamar released To Pimp a Butterfly, when that song All Right came out and it was on the radio and people were hearing it, like, it became a protest music. It became like, and that was another level I had not seen for hip hop, at least like in my listenings of it. And even more explicitly politically, like, there's a story of like, maybe some of the old people who remember 2 Live Crew. I don't know, that was back in, what was it, the 80s, I want to say?
I think it was the 80s.
The 80s?
Yeah,
And they had that song, Me So Horny, and they went to court over that song because the governors wanted to say, no, you can't play this, and they won. And just imagine what music would be today if they hadn't won that court case. That's a direct.
The band won.
Huh?
The band won.
Oh, the band won?
When you say they won, who won?
No, the 2 Live Crew, yeah.
Yeah, they won. That's
Yeah,
what
they won. They won. 2 Live Crew won.
Yes,
And yeah, and I was like, imagine like if the 2 Live Crew hadn't won. Like, what would you be able to say on the radio? What would you be able to express? What would that have meant? So, huge political pull.
I like the. I think the lyrics, like most jazz music, was like instrumental. So I think that it's the lyrics in the rap that attract the people, that they can relate to more so than listening to like the instruments performing. Like Max Roach wrote a tune called "It's Time," but that was an all instrumental tune. But the title was about it's time for freedom. So you have to read about what that title meant at the time. But when you listen to the rap music and with the lyric, they're telling you what the song is about, and that's what really attracts a lot of people, because they can hear the lyric.
You hear it explicitly.
And I think it has a lot to do with our education with music in the schools. We're not taught how to listen to instruments anymore in the school. We're taught everything is about lyrics now. Nothing is about instruments. Shows on TV is about lyrics, vocalists. What about the musicians that create music? And I think that's what's being lost. We need to learn about how to listen to music, instruments. We need to learn instruments.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of these rappers, if they have music in the schools, they'll be rapping and playing instruments, not just, using other music. They'll be creating the music, and playing the instruments.
Yes.
Marshall talked a little bit about that last session. Do you want to share some of what you shared last session, Marshall, about music in schools and?
Well, I was saying that music was really, music was the primary way that students today get into jazz music, and I feel like that is kind of what is directing how jazz is changing now, and the fact that a lot of these kids listen to his hip hop as like popular music, and that they're learning, and some people are learning music in schools, that kind of pushes the 2 genres together.
Thank you.
In other words, having the opportunity to even learn an instrument in the beginning, you saw a lot more African Americans, Blacks, learning, being musicians, and one of the main reasons why was it was the learning of instruments was in school.
Right.
You didn't have to have a scholarship to Peabody when I was growing up in Baltimore to learn how to play the trumpet or whatever. They had a big room full of instruments, and they brought it out into the band room. So no matter how poor you were, you could learn how to play a trumpet or whatever, come back after school and we'll practice. Reagan in the administration, which came in, I believe at the beginning of 1982 or 81. That's one of the first things they did away with their budget cuts, cutting the budgets for arts and so that meant Black kids, because the white schools in the suburbs that have money, they got the PTA, they're gonna have, and so that's why today, that's why after that, it was mostly white kids learning how to play instruments. Black kids weren't learning how to play instruments anymore. And since Black kids in America are the ones that create the styles of music, that's one of the reasons I call Reagan the father of hip hop.
Well, you know, one thing about Black people, we are going to come up with a way to express ourselves, whether through lyrics or through our instruments. We are going to express ourselves, period. So you can take the instruments from us, we will start rapping, you know.
That's right. Don't have a drum set.
And if it takes freedom of speech away, we'll come up with something else.
Come up with something else.
We always do it. We always do it.
That's right.
Right there. Well, do you think these new artists coming forward, Robert Glasper, Kamasi Washington, do you think they're going to push jazz and jazz hip hop mainstream?
I think they already have a little bit. Like Robert Glasper was, I mean, not to credit Robert Glasper like the entirety of To Pimp a Butterfly's production, but Robert Glasper was on a number of songs in To Pimp a Butterfly, and that was a very popular and culturally significant album. Kamasi Washington, I've read some stories about him, and people seem to have an impression that he is bringing jazz to a new age of people, especially like in places like even outside the hip hop community, like in rock communities, where they might not have, you know, heard music that featured, you know, the kind of energy that they appreciate, and also had a saxophonist as the main frontman. So I think it's already started to begin, and I think again you see that with these new lo-fi beats that you see pop up on YouTube all the time. It's usually a very it's a simple, relatively simple, like jazzy chord progression, and it sort of evokes this sense of it's how to describe it, like smooth jazz for hip hop, if that makes sense. All right. But it's the same sort of energy.
So it could be like the bougie rap.
Yeah.
Have any of you guys ever heard of Weldon Irvin?
No, I'm not actually.
Yeah. Weldon Irvin was a musician, piano player who committed suicide, but he was actually like a actual jazz musician that actually rapped. He actually rapped. He actually created raps.
I didn't know he rapped.
Yeah, man. When I met him in Philadelphia, he had wrote a show called Over 40, and I went back to his hotel room, and he had like KSR1. He had all his KRS1.
KRS1, yeah, I think that's
He had all of his recordings. He had all Tribe Called Quest. He had all of their recordings. He was studying rap, and he started rapping as a pianist.
Wow, okay.
You know?
Well, we'll have to look him up and maybe present a little bit about him in the next session, but we're out of time now.
Okay.
We thank you for joining the conversation, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Black History Talks, the Jazz Cypher Project. Thank you all for joining this session.
Thank you.
See you next time.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.